Now, this is the longest chapter in the book of Mark. In fact, it's pretty much one of the longest chapters in the New Testament, and we're only going to get through part of it tonight. So we'll finish off the rest, not next week because I'm going to be away. Doug's going to be preaching then, but in the first week in September we'll go through it then. So let's just jump straight in. Mark chapter number 14 and verse number 1. Mark chapter 14, verse number 1. It says, "After 2 days was the feast of the Passover and of unleavened bread. And the chief priests and the scribes sought how they might take him by craft and put him to death." So as the Passover is approaching, the chief priests, the scribes, they're wanting to kill Jesus. They're wanting to kill Jesus. Now, keep your finger there in Mark chapter number 14, but flick, if you would, back to John, forward to John, depending which way you want to call it. John chapter number 11. And we're going to actually look at a more detailed account of why it is that they want to put Jesus to death, because we get some more details here. In John chapter number 11, there's the famous account of Lazarus. Remember, Lazarus was who Jesus raised from the dead, and that's only recorded in the book of John. The only place you'll find that is in the Gospel of John. And in fact, actually, we better have a look just while we hear these great verses. Look at verse number 25, John 11, verse 25. Jesus said unto her, "I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whosoever," that means anyone, "liveth and believeth in me shall never die. Believest thou this?" That's quite a verse. It's quite good to ask people when people are into like work salvation. When Jesus said, "Look, whoever lives and believes in me, you'll never die." And then he says, "Believest thou this?" Do you believe this? You know, and I think it's good to pin people down because we're like, you've got to do works to be saved. Well, Jesus said, "Look, if you believe, you'll never die." Do you believe that? And people have to make a choice. They've got to decide whether they believe that. But that's got nothing to do with what we're talking about. So turn across to verse number 43. Verse number 43 of chapter number 11. Here we see Lazarus gets raised from the dead. It says, verse number 43. It says, "And when he had thus spoken, he cried with a loud voice, Lazarus, come forth. And he that was dead came forth, bound hand and foot, with grave clothes, and his face was bound about with a napkin. Jesus saith unto them, Loose him, and let him go." Because obviously Lazarus had died, he'd been in the tomb for it was about 4 days or something like that, and his sister was saying, "Look, he's going to be smelly by now," but look, he called him forth, he raised him from the dead. Verse 45, "Then many of the Jews which came to Mary, and had seen the things which Jesus did, believed on him. But some of them went their ways to the Pharisees, and told them what things Jesus had done. Then gathered the chief priests and the Pharisees a council, and said, What do we? For this man doeth many miracles. If we let him thus alone, all men will believe on him, and the Romans shall come and take away both our place and nation." And so here we can see they're concerned about what Jesus is doing, and they're worried about their own position, thinking, look, if this keeps going on, the Romans are going to come down hard on us, and we've got this good position of authority, we're going to lose the position that we're in, and that's what they're worried about. Verse 49, "And one of them, named Caiaphas, being the high priest that same year, said unto them, Ye know nothing at all, nor consider that it is expedient for us that one man should die for the people, and that the whole nation perish not." So he's basically saying, look, it would be better off if Jesus died, rather than all of us die with the Romans sort of putting us down. "And this spake he not of himself, but being high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus should die for that nation." So he didn't even really know what he was saying, but he was actually saying something that was going to happen. "And not for that nation only, but that also he should gather together in one the children of God that were scattered abroad. Then from that day forth they took counsel together for to put him to death." So here we can see they're planning to put Jesus to death. They're planning to put him to death because of, he's doing these miracles, people are believing, and so that's something that they don't want. Look at verse number 54. "Jesus therefore walked no more openly among the Jews, but went thence into a country near to the wilderness, into a city called Ephraim, and there continued with his disciples. And the Jews' Passover was nigh at hand, and many went out of the country up to Jerusalem before the Passover to purify themselves." So this is what we've just been reading in Mark. The Passover's approaching. "Then sought they for Jesus, and spake among themselves as they stood in the temple, What think ye, that he will not come to the feast? Now both the chief priests and the Pharisees had given a commandment that if any man knew where he were, he should show it, that they might take him." So they've decided, we're going to get Jesus, we're going to kill him, and so they're putting out an order. It's like, if anyone knows where Jesus is, let us know, because we want to lay hold on him. Now keep going, we're going to jump into chapter number 12 just for a little bit. We'll turn back to Mark 14 soon, but what we want to see here is we want to see that basically John records the same event that we're going to look at in Mark 14, but he gives us some details that we don't find in Mark. So have a look here at John chapter number 12, verse number 1. It says, then Jesus, 6 days before the Passover, came to Bethany, where Lazarus was, which had been dead, whom he raised from the dead. There they made him a supper, and Martha served. But Lazarus was one of them that sat at the table with him. Then took Mary a pound of ointment of spikenard, very costly, and anointed the feet of Jesus, and wiped his feet with her hair, and the house was filled with the odour of the ointment. Then saith one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, Simon's son, which should betray him, Why was not this ointment sold for 300 pence and given to the poor? This he said, not that he cared for the poor, but because he was a thief, and had the bag, and bare what was put therein. Then said Jesus, Let her alone. Against the day of my burying hath she kept this. For the poor always ye have with you, but me ye have not always. Much people of the Jews therefore knew that he was there, and they came not for Jesus' sake only, but that they might see Lazarus also, whom he had raised from the dead. But the chief priests consulted that they might put Lazarus also to death, because that by reason of him many of the Jews went away and believed on Jesus. So here, in this account, we see a bunch of details that we don't actually see when we look through it in the Gospel of Mark. I mean, specifically, we find out that, for example, the woman who anointed him with ointment, which we're going to read about, was Mary. This is Mary, who's the sister of Lazarus. Okay? We also find out that the one who complained about wasting the money, which we just read before in Mark, the one who complained about wasting money was actually Judas. It was Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon. And we also find out he didn't really care about the poor, although he was saying, look, this money should have been given to the poor. It was actually saying, well, he was a thief, and he was actually looking after the bag of money. So it's like they had things in common. It's like, who's going to look after the money bag? Oh, Judas, you look after it. So he's got the money bag, and he's saying, hey, look, we should have sold this and given money to poor, because obviously that money will put it in the bag first, and he would have been dipping into the bag and stealing it. And not only did the chief priest, we also saw just at the end there, the chief priest, not only did they plot to kill Jesus, they wanted to kill Lazarus as well. Why? Because of him, there were people that were believing on Jesus. Now turn, if you would, back to Mark chapter number 14. Mark chapter number 14, look at verse number 2. Mark chapter number 14, verse number 2. So the priests, the scribes, they're planning how they're going to put Jesus to death. But they said, not on the feast day, lest there should be an uproar of the people. So they don't want to kill him during the feast, because they don't want trouble. There's plenty of people that are supporting Jesus at this stage. And so they're worried for their own safety. So they're thinking, let's do it just quietly when no one's around. Verse number 3. And being in Bethany in the house of Simon the leper, as he sat at meat, there came a woman having an alabaster box of ointment of spikenard, very precious, and she brake the box and poured it on his head. So all of this that we're reading here, this takes place in the house of Simon the leper. Now, I don't know too much about this guy, Simon the leper. I mean, maybe he was Judas's father, because it mentioned back in the account in John that he was Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon. Okay, it doesn't say who it was. Possibly that's who it was. Okay, and here we see what does Mary do? Mary anoints Jesus' head, and then she also wipes, as we saw back in John. She wiped his feet as well. She wiped his feet with her hair. Look at verse number 4. And there were some that had indignation within themselves and said, why was this waste of the ointment made? And so specifically we saw back in John, who was the one that was really complaining? It was Judas. Verse number 5. For it might have been sold for more than 300 pence and have been given to the poor, and they murmured against her. Jesus said, let her alone, why trouble you her? She hath wrought a good work on me. So Judas basically said that this ointment could have been sold for a lot of money rather than wasting it. Pouring this ointment, pouring it on Jesus' feet. He's saying, look, this is a waste to do that. And other people were convinced by that, because it says they murmured among themselves. So it was other people obviously went along and listened with what Judas was saying. They were convinced by him. They murmured against Mary and what she had done. Now here's the thing. Was it a good thing that she had done? Was it a good thing? Well, yeah, it was, because Jesus, according to Jesus, he says, look, she hath wrought a good work on me. So it was a good thing that she had done. Okay, now here's the thing. Often people will be upset when you do good. When you do it, it's not, you think, if I do what's good, if I do what's right, everyone's going to be happy. Everyone's going to love me. It's going to be great. I'm going to be the most popular person around. But that's actually not the case. Sometimes people will be upset when you do good. And there can be a lot of reasons for this. One of the reasons it can be is that when you're doing good and other people aren't doing good, it can make them look bad. You know what I mean? It's like if one person's doing what's right and everyone else is doing what's wrong, it's like, it really shows, like if everyone's doing what's wrong, it's like, whatever, everyone's doing the same. But as soon as one person does good, that kind of shows up what the other people are doing, But here's the thing, that's not the sort of attitude that we should have. We shouldn't have the attitude, even think of if maybe you're doing good, but maybe someone's doing better than you. Well, hey, we should rejoice. The Bible says rejoice with them that do rejoice. We shouldn't be thinking, well, I've got to be the best, I've got to do more. We were out soul winning last week, and I was thinking about soul winning. When we were soul winning last week, we were out on, was it Friday night, I think it was? Yeah. Doug and Phil were out on Tuesday night, and someone got saved on the Tuesday night. Then we're out on the Friday night, and they got 2 people saved, and I got 1 person saved. So last week, 3 people were saved with Phil and Doug being out, and 1 person. So do you think I think, well, that's not fair. They're getting more people saved. Honest, but some people would have that attitude. They would. They think, well, I want to be the best. Now, we should want to do the best, because just so that more people get saved, not so that we come first place. It's not a competition to think, well, I've got to beat these people. But it is a competition to think, hey, how much can I do? How many people can I preach the gospel to? How many people can get saved? So in that aspect, okay? And but here's the thing. Some people will criticise just for the fact of, if you go soul winning at all. If you've ever been in a church where you're the only person going soul winning. I've been in a church like that before, when you're the only person, and sometimes people will be critical of you. People who don't do any soul winning themselves, and they'll tell you this is how you should do it. You're doing this wrong. In fact, I've had people out, when I've been out soul winning, I've had people whose doors I knock tell me, actually, no, this is how you should preach the gospel. And they were people who never would preach the gospel. I remember this lady she was talking to Maureen about it. She was saying, well, don't you think Ian should be going 2 by 2? Because the Bible says go 2 by 2. Now, often we would go out 2 by 2. Sometimes we'd go, by 3. Sometimes I'd take both my boys. Sometimes I took my whole family. Just depended. Sometimes I'd go by myself. But it's like, this lady was being critical because sometimes I'd go with less than 2, or sometimes I'd go with more than 2. But here's the thing, she never went soul winning. Her husband never went soul winning, but she was just looking for a reason to complain, a reason to criticise, and that's not something we should be like. There's a saying I heard that goes kind of like, before you try and fix other people, you want to get your own house in order. Doesn't that sound familiar? Doesn't that sound like something Jesus talked about? I think he did. Matthew chapter number 7. What did he say? Why beholdest thou the mote? That's like a little wee speck, a little wee tiny thing. Why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considereth not the beam that is in thine own eye? And he says, thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam. That's like a great big lump of wood. Cast out the beam out of thine own eye, and then shalt thou see clearly to cast out the mote out of thy brother's eye. In other words, fix yourself first before you go trying to fix your brother. Okay? So hey, before you start criticising how people go soul winning, how about you go soul winning first? You go soul winning first, and then, hey, I'm all ears. If you've got tips and suggestions, hey, I'm all ears. But I'm not going to listen to someone who doesn't go soul winning. Because what are they going to tell me? Nothing. It's because clueless. Anyway, let's continue on. Verse number 7. He says, look, she's wrought a good work on me. For ye have the poor with you always, and whensoever ye will, ye may do them good. But me ye have not always. So Jesus says here, look, there's always going to be poor people. There is always going to be poor people. And guess what? You can help them whenever you want to. You want to help a poor person? Just go out and find them. There's plenty of poor people around. If you want to help them, you can do that any time you want. And this person, Judas, if he wanted to help the poor, he could go, dip his hand into his own pocket and go and help the poor. Why not do that? But that wasn't what he wanted. He was talking about what other people were doing. Okay? And so here's the thing. He says, look, you can help them whenever you want. But he says, look, there's not always going to be the chance to do good to me, because I'm not going to be here all the time. I'm about to be betrayed. I'm about to be crucified. So something that this actually does tell us, though, is that according to Jesus, eliminating poverty is impossible. It is impossible, because Jesus says the poor you're always going to have with you. Okay? Now, should we try and help people get out of poverty? Yeah, we should. We should try and lend a helping hand, try and help people out of poverty. But the thing we need to realise is that, look, some people are poor because of their own choices. And the choices that you make, you can't stop other people from still making bad choices. Look, if you would, keep your finger in Mark 14, but look back at Proverbs chapter number 21. Proverbs chapter number 21. Proverbs chapter number 21 and verse number 17. Proverbs 21:17. It says, he that loveth pleasure shall be a poor man, He that loveth wine and oil shall not be rich. So here's one reason why some people can be poor, because they've got desires for things, pleasures and wine and oil, and they've got these desires. And that's one reason why people can be poor, is because they spend money on things they shouldn't be spending money on. They need to be saving and not wasting money. And often poor people can waste a lot of money. You go to like a fast food place, because our fast food places is the food there really cheap? Or would it be cheaper to go to a shop and buy something and cook it yourself? Which would be cheaper? It would be cheaper to buy it and cook it yourself. But if you go to fast food places, you find all the rich people there, don't you? Or is it poor people that you find there? You do. You find a lot of poor people, and that's what they're doing. It's not that you can never have fast food, but here's the thing: if you don't have a lot of money, then that's not something you should be doing. It's wasting. It's wasting money. Look at Proverbs. Same chapter. Look at verse number 20. It says, "There is treasure to be desired and oil in the dwelling of the wise, but a foolish man spendeth it up." See, that's the problem. The foolish man spendeth it up. Look at verse number 25. "The desire of the slothful killeth him, for his hands refuse to labour." This might be one of the problem. This might be one of the problem with the poor person, because look, he's refusing. He's refusing to work. He's got this desire. Just when we saw the poor person has the desires, the slothful person's got desires, but he won't do the work that's needed. Turn back to Proverbs chapter number 10. Proverbs chapter number 10 and verse number 4. Proverbs chapter number 10 and verse number 4. Proverbs 10:4 says, "He becometh poor that dealeth with a slack hand." Notice that. He becometh poor that dealeth with a slack hand. A slack hand, have you heard of someone called a slacker? If someone's a slacker, what are they? They're lazy, they're idle, they don't do anything, that they refuse to work. Well, he says, look, he becometh poor that dealeth with a slack hand. But the hand of the diligent maketh rich. So someone who's diligent, someone who works hard. Think about it on the job. Who's the person? Times are, it's going to be hard economic times. Someone's going to have to be let go. Who are you going to let go? The slacker, the person who's not working, the person that's not providing any good for the business. Okay? But it's like, hey, look, we need to promote someone. We need a supervisor. Who are you going to get? You're going to choose the person that's always working, that's looking for a job, and it's making himself, look, I'm not paid to do that. Doesn't matter. This needs to be done. I'll do it. Okay? The hand of the diligent maketh rich. Look at Proverbs chapter number 6. Proverbs chapter number 6 is a great picture we get here when he talks about the ant. Proverbs chapter number 6 and verse number 6. Proverbs 6:6 says, "Go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways and be wise, which having no guide, overseer, or ruler, provideth her meat in the summer, and gathereth her food in the harvest." That means, what does the ant do? Even though there's no guide, there's no overseer, there's no one cracking the whip, what are they doing? They're providing their meat, their food in the summer, and gathering in the harvest. They're working even when there's no one cracking the whip. And that's the thing. People who get paid more work without being supervised. Because if you've got to have someone supervising you and telling you what to do, guess what? That supervisor is going to get paid more than you. Yes. But if you will work without anyone, in other words, you be your own supervisor, tell yourself what to do, then you don't need a supervisor, guess what? You become a supervisor. You'll get paid more. Okay? You'll go into a position of responsibility. Look at verse number 9. "How long wilt thou sleep, O sluggard? When wilt thou rise out of thy sleep? Yet a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding the hands to sleep. So shall thy poverty come as one that travelleth, and thy want as an armed man." So notice, poverty comes because of slumbering, sleeping, spending too much time in bed, being lazy. Look at the last place we look is chapter number 23, Proverbs 23, verse 21. We often sing this. Proverbs chapter number 23 and verse number 21. I'll actually look at verse number 20. Proverbs 23, verse 20 says, "Be not among wine bibbers, among riotous eaters of flesh, for the drunkard and the glutton shall come to poverty, and drowsiness shall clothe a man with rags." Being a drunkard, being a glutton, being lazy, being asleep all the time, poverty, clothed in rags. Pretty straightforward, okay? And so here's the thing. We need to realise that many people are poor because of their own choices. It's because of their own choices. And so there are people that you can't help. You can't help, you cannot lift them out of their poverty. In fact, giving them, what about this? You've got the drunkard, you've got the glutton who's poor. What's going to happen if you give this guy your money?
Buy more.
He's going to buy more alcohol. Isn't that the thing? There are many people who, they beg on the side of the road. What are they begging for? So you can get money to buy drugs or other things like that. Because sometimes you can offer someone, someone was doing that, they offered it, I'll buy you some food. They didn't want it. They didn't want the food. They wanted money. They didn't want to be given food because that's not what they were really after. Okay? But having said all that, we should still help the poor. We should still help the poor. You're there in Proverbs. Look at Proverbs 29. Proverbs chapter 29 and verse number 7. Proverbs 29 and verse number 7. It says, the righteous considereth the cause of the poor, but the wicked regardeth not to know it. The righteous considereth the cause of the poor, but the righteous regardeth not to know it. Look at Proverbs chapter number... Proverbs 21. Proverbs chapter number 21, verse number 13. Proverbs 21 and verse number 13. It says, whoso stoppeth his ears at the cry of the poor, he also shall cry himself, but shall not be heard. Okay, so you got the poor person who's actually crying out, someone who needs help, and you refuse. Oh, no. Don't want to listen, don't want to help. No, we should be helping people. Okay? But at the same time, part of Proverbs 29:7, the righteous considereth the cause of the poor. Consider why someone is poor. Consider why they are poor. Try and help them get out of their poverty. Don't just say, well, I'll just give them this and this is going to help out. Look at Psalm 37. Psalm number 37 and verse number 21. Psalm number 37 and verse number 21. It says, the wicked borroweth and payeth not again, but the righteous showeth mercy and giveth. Being righteous, you're merciful and you do give. But it's not that you just give to absolutely everyone. Giving money to a drunk, what is that going to do? That's just going to destroy their lives more. That's not actually helping them at all. Okay? But notice also, if we turn back to Mark chapter number 7, you should be giving your own money. Because whose money did Judas... presumably if Mary poured this thing, presumably it was hers. She had this ointment of spikenard, very valuable, very costly. He was saying, look, Mary, you need to sell that and you need to give. And there's a lot of people like that are like that today. It's they want other people to give. The sort of the socialist idea. We need to just take everyone's money and then we can give it to people that don't work. That's not a good idea. It's not a good idea at all. Give your own money. Don't give someone else's money. That's what Judas wanted to do. Look back at Mark chapter number 14. Look, verse number 8. Verse number 8. He says, she hath done what she could. She is come aforehand to anoint my body to the burying. Verily I say unto you, wheresoever this gospel shall be preached throughout the whole world, this also that she hath done shall be spoken of for a memorial of her. So what Mary did, what she was doing was preparing Jesus' body for his upcoming death. She was anointing his body, preparing it for his upcoming death. In fact, this was so important an account that it's actually included in all of the Gospels. All 4 of the Gospels. Unlike many events you'll find, we saw Lazarus being raised, that's only in the Gospel of John. Okay? Other Gospels you might have things in 2 Gospels or 3 Gospels, but not everything is included in all 4 Gospels. But this account, you find all 4 Gospels include Mary doing this. And in fact, actually, I think it's Mary most likely did this more than once, because if you read the account I think it's in Luke chapter number 7, that was much earlier. Yes. It was much earlier that, she did this on more than one occasion. Look down at verse number 10. Verse number 10. And Judas Iscariot, one of the 12, went unto the chief priests to betray him unto them. So here's the thing. The reason why we look back at John to see the account, that's how we discovered that it was Judas was the one who was complaining. Okay, we discovered he was the one that was saying you should be, selling it and giving it to the poor. And then immediately after this, we find out that Judas Iscariot now decides he's going to betray Jesus. And so it's straight after this. Maybe him going to the chief priest and deciding to betray Jesus, maybe it had something to do with the fact that he complained and said, hey, we should have sold this. And Jesus is like, no, she's done something good. Maybe it's the fact that, his complaining and moaning, Jesus refuted it and ignored what he was saying and saying, no, what she did was good. You're wrong. You're wrong, Judas. Okay? And here's the thing. I'm not saying that's necessarily what happened, but that could easily be what happened. When something doesn't go someone's way, it's like, right, that's it. And they go off and do something. But we need to realise we have a choice. When things don't go our way, are we going to learn from it? Because, isn't Jesus the master teacher? Whatever he says, that's going to be right. Wouldn't the right thing to be said, well, if Jesus said that, okay, lesson learned, okay? It would be better off to do what she's done, I shouldn't be doing this, And so, learn from it. But of course, many people, they don't want to learn. They refuse the instruction that's being offered. You don't need to turn there, but it says in Proverbs chapter 1, verse 7, it says, fools despise wisdom and instruction. Fools despise. Do you despise it when someone instructs you? When someone tells you, actually, no, this is the right way. Okay? And obviously, as I said before, it's not just because someone gives you instruction. It's like, do they know what they're talking about? You know, getting soul winning advice from someone who never goes soul winning. Okay? That's not a good idea. But hey, if someone is a soul winner and they want to give me advice, hey, I'm all ears. I learn things from people all the time. I want to learn. If I was somebody that, well, I know it all, you can't teach me. What would that say? I'm a fool. Yep. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. And so here's the thing. We've got a choice between getting better or getting bitter. And Judas, obviously, he chose to get bitter. Yes. He chose to be offended by what Jesus said. Okay? Look at verse number 11. Verse number 11. And the first day of unleavened bread, when they killed the Passover, his disciples said unto him, Where wilt thou that we go and prepare that thou mayest eat the Passover? So, that's verse 12. Verse 11. And when they heard it, they were glad and promised to give him money. And he sought how he might conveniently betray him. So the chief priests, they're happy to hear from Judas. Because what? They've been waiting for a chance to destroy Jesus. Now Judas, he's on the lookout. He's waiting for a chance to betray him. Basically a time when the crowds aren't there. This is where he is. Here he is alone in the garden. This is where I'm going to betray him when the crowds aren't around. Verse number 12. And the first day of unleavened bread, when they killed the Passover, his disciples said unto him, Where wilt thou that we go and prepare that thou mayest eat the Passover? And he sendeth forth two of his disciples, and saith unto them, Go ye into the city, and there shall meet you a man bearing a pitcher of water. Follow him. And wheresoever he shall go in, say to the good men of the house, The master saith, Where is the guest chamber, where I shall eat the Passover with my disciples? And he will show you a large upper room, furnished and prepared. There make ready for us. So as the Passover draws near, Jesus tells the disciples, Go into the city, where they'll meet a man carrying some water. Now it's interesting, water is something that can picture salvation. Look, if you would keep your finger in Mark 14, but look at Revelation, right at the end of the Bible, Revelation chapter number 21. Revelation chapter number 21 and verse number 6. Revelation chapter number 21, verse number 6. And he said unto me, It is done, I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, and I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of the water of life freely. Look at Revelation chapter 22, verse number 1. And he showed me a pure river of water of life, clear as crystal, proceeding out of the throne of God and of the Lamb. Look at verse number 17. And the Spirit and the bride say, Come. And let him that heareth say, Come. And let him that is athirst come. And whosoever will, that's whoever wants to, whosoever will, let him take the water of life freely. Whosoever and freely. That goes really well with, all these Calvinists who say it's just what God chose. He says, look, whosoever will, whoever wants to, let him take of the water of life freely. But notice, it's something that's picturing salvation. Back in John chapter number 7, don't need to turn there, but verse 38, it says, He that believeth on me, as the scripture hath said, out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water. Out of his belly shall flow rivers of living water. Talking about the Holy Spirit, it's talking about salvation. Ephesians chapter 5 verse 26 talks about cleansing with the washing of water by the word. So it pictures salvation and it pictures the word of God. Okay? In fact, one other account, we might look at this one. Look at John chapter number 4. John chapter number 4, and the account of Jesus and the woman at the well. John chapter number 4 and verse number 7. John chapter number 4 and verse number 7. And it says, There cometh a woman of Samaria to draw water. Jesus saith unto her, Give me to drink. For his disciples had gone away into the city to buy meat. Then saith the woman of Samaria unto him, How is it that thou, being a Jew, askest drink of me, which am a woman of Samaria? For the Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans. Jesus answered and said unto her, If thou knewest the gift of God, and who it is that saith to thee, Give me to drink, thou wouldest have asked of him, and he would have given thee living water. The woman saith to him, Sir, thou hast nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. For whence then hast thou that living water? Art thou greater than our father Jacob, which gave us the well, and drank thereof himself, and his children, and his cattle? Jesus answered and said unto her, Whosoever drinketh of this water shall thirst again, but whosoever drinketh of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him shall be in him a well of water springing out into everlasting life. So notice, we see it's picturing everlasting life. And notice, you don't need to drink again. Once you've drunk of it, and it wells up an everlasting life. And so here's the thing, we can see that the water, and because back here in Mark chapter number 14, you see, look, there's going to meet you a man carrying a pitcher of water. Follow him. Okay? And so, he says to follow the guy with the water. You could say, well, okay, you should be following people who are saved. We should be following the word. Remember, washing with water by the word. And what's this person going to do? He's going to show them a room that's prepared for the Passover where they can get things ready. Look down at verse number 16. Mark 14, verse number 16. And his disciples went forth and came into the city and found as he had said unto them. And they made ready the Passover. So Jesus said, this is what's going to happen. Go to the city, you're going to find someone carrying water, follow him, and he's going to lead you here. Exactly like Jesus said it would be. That's what happened, right? Because the Lord knows the future. Verse number 17. And in the evening he cometh with the 12. And as they sat and did eat, Jesus said, Verily I say unto you, one of you which eateth with me shall betray me. And they began to be sorrowful and to say unto him one by one, Is it I? And another said, Is it I? So Jesus comes with the rest of the disciples in the evening, and then he announces to them, one of you is going to betray me. Yet again, obviously, he knows the future. He's telling them, this is what's going to happen. One of you is going to betray me. And what do they all begin to say? Is it I? Is it I? Is it me? Did they suspect Judas? Did they suspect Judas? No, they didn't. They suspected themselves. What that means is you can't necessarily identify a traitor. You can't. Okay? Some people think, I could tell. I mean, you've heard of, a wolf in sheep's clothing. I mean, Jesus talked about false prophets. Beware of false prophets, which come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravening wolves. You shall know them by their fruits. So does that mean you can look at them and you can recognise them? No, you can't, because they look like a sheep. Now, if you watch their fruit and observe what comes from them, then, hey, you'll know them by their fruits. But he's saying, look, they look like everyone else. They look like everyone else. Now, I've said this before, and I'm going to keep on saying it. Should we trust everyone? No, we shouldn't. The Bible said it's better to trust in the Lord than to put confidence in man. It's better to trust in the Lord than to put confidence in princes. That means even important people. Don't just drop off your kids for people to look after. Don't do that. Don't drop your kids off for other people, because it's like, I was just reading in the news lately. Was it over 100 cases of abuse in the first 3 months of this year among children in the care, so-called, of what are they called, SIFs, or they change their name all the time. It's always a different thing. The people, the children supposedly looking after children is what they're supposed to be. But 100 cases in the first 3 months of this year, and those are the only ones that they know about. I mean, how many do you think there are that they don't know about? I'd say there'd be more that they don't know about than the ones that they do know about. Okay? And so here's the thing. We need to realise, in fact, look at Ecclesiastes chapter number 9. Ecclesiastes chapter number 9 and verse number 18. Ecclesiastes chapter number 9 and verse number 18. We need to realise we need to especially be careful with our children. Especially. Keep a close eye on your children. It says in Ecclesiastes 9:18, Wisdom is better than weapons of war, but one sinner destroyeth much good. In other words, look, wisdom, it's better to be wise than to have guns and bows and arrows or tanks or anything. Because there are some things that you can't fix with a weapon. Okay? You can't go back and fix something that's been done. You can't. You can't go back and change it. And if something like that has happened to you, I'm sorry that it's happened. You can't go back and fix it. But the reason I'm saying this is so don't let it happen to someone else. Don't let it happen to someone else. Keep an eye on your children. And because the whole thing with this child abuse that goes on, I mean, you'll often find that child abusers were abused themselves. Isn't that the thing? It goes on from one to the other to the other. But it's still a choice. It's still a choice. Because guess what? Most people who are abused don't become child abusers. Most people don't. It's the minority who do. Okay, so you say, he's a child abuser because he was abused. But that doesn't work, because all these other people abused and they didn't. It's still a choice. Okay? But here's the thing, we need to be careful. It says wisdom is better than weapons of war, but one sinner destroyeth much good. One sinner destroyeth much good. All the good that you can have done with your children, looking after them and teaching them and raising them the right way. And then, we're having a parents' night. Parents go out on a date night and just drop your kids off at church, and we've just got we've got some people and they're going to look after them, it'll be fine while you go off. Don't they do that in churches? They do. They do. And people drop off their kids with someone, they don't even know who they are. They don't even know who they are. And here's the thing, am I saying that therefore most people, most babysitters or most people, or teachers or sports coaches, am I saying they're abusers? No. the vast majority aren't. But what does the Bible say? One sinner destroyeth much good. It only takes one. It only takes one, and so much of your good work can be undone. Be careful. Be careful. Turn back to Mark chapter number 14. Look at verse number 20. Because we don't know, we aren't going to recognise him. Look at verse number 20. And he answered and said unto them, It is one of the 12 that dippeth with me in the dish. The Son of Man indeed goeth, as it is written of him. But woe to that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. Good were it for that man if he'd never been born. So Jesus tells them, look, it's one of you guys. It's one of the 12. They're sharing a meal together that's going to betray them. And he says, look, it would be better for him that he'd never been born. The Bible talks about whosoever shall offend one of these little ones that believe me, says, it would be better for him that a millstone were tied about his neck and he were cast into the depths of the sea. Look at verse number 22. And as they did eat, Jesus took bread and blessed and brake it, and gave it to them and said, Take, eat, this is my body. And he took the cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, and they all drank of it. And he said unto them, This is my blood of the New Testament, which is shed for many. Verily I say unto you, I will drink no more of the fruit of the vine until that day that I drink it new in the kingdom of God. So this is the Lord's Supper. This is the Lord's Supper that he's instigating here. And notice here the fruit of the vine, that represents Jesus' blood, which is shed for us. It says in 1 Peter, I think it is, 1 Peter chapter number 1, it says that we were redeemed not with corruptible things, as silver and gold from your vain conversation, received by tradition from your fathers, but with the precious blood of Christ, as of a lamb without blemish and without spot. It wasn't by silver and gold that we were redeemed. We weren't bought back with that. It was the precious blood of Christ. And notice, without blemish and without spot. It was the perfect, spotless blood of the Son of the Son of God. Because Jesus was without sin. He was without sin. Now notice also back in Mark 14, this is the feast of the Passover, which is also called the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So notice, it's the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Well, what is leaven? Leaven, or yeast, in the Bible is a type of sin. That's what it pictures. It pictures sin. And one of the reasons it pictures sin is because you put yeast in something, and what does it happen? The Bible says the little leaven leaveneth the whole lump. It goes through it, because it's like some living thing, and it goes through an organism and goes through and makes the gas and makes the bread rise and stuff like that. But it pictures sin. Why? Because a little bit of sin goes through and spreads. It goes through and spreads. Look, if you would, at 1 Corinthians chapter number 5. 1 Corinthians chapter number 5 and verse number 6. 1 Corinthians chapter number 5 and verse number 6. And this is when Paul talked about throwing out the fornicator. It says in 1 Corinthians chapter number 5, verse number 6, it says, Your glorying is not good. Know ye not that a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump? Purge out therefore the old leaven, that ye may be a new lump, as ye are unleavened. For even Christ our Passover is sacrificed for us. Therefore let us keep the feast, not with old leaven, neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. And so here's the thing. Back in Mark chapter number 14, clearly this bread did not contain yeast. Why? Because leaven is a type of sin. It's picturing sin. But here's the thing. Do you think that the grape juice did? Do you think that contained yeast? Do you think that it was fermented? Because many people do. Many people think that it was alcoholic wine. That's what they think. What sense would that make? Because it's unleavened bread. You've got bread without leaven in it. Why would you have grape juice with leaven in it? Why would you have fermented grape juice? And yet that's what people do. But often, the same people, they'll have, for the Lord's Supper, they'll have white, puffy bread. Okay? It's supposed to be unleavened bread. And they'll have alcoholic wine. Okay? Well, no. Jesus talked about the fruit of the vine. He said, I will drink no more of the fruit of the vine. He wasn't saying I'm going to drink more of this, liquor. Because, the Bible says that, wine is a mocker, strong drink is raging. Whosoever is deceived thereby is not wise. Son of Man, he's wise. Jesus Christ is wisdom incarnate. Continue on, verse number 26. And when they'd sung an hymn, they went out into the Mount of Olives. So they'd sung a hymn, they go out when we celebrate the Lord's Supper, because Jesus talked about it. He said, do this in remembrance of me. When we celebrate the Lord's Supper, what do? We sing a hymn and then we leave. We don't stay around in fellowship, because they sang a hymn and they went out. Verse number 27. And Jesus saith unto them, All ye shall be offended because of me this night. For it is written, I will smite the shepherd, and the sheep shall be scattered. But after that I am risen, I will go before you into Galilee. So Jesus tells them, look, you're all going to desert me, as predicted by the Scripture. But after I've risen from the dead, what am I going to do? I'm going to go into Galilee. Verse number 29. But Peter said unto him, although all shall be offended, yet will not I. And Jesus said unto him, verily I say unto thee, that this day, even in this night, before the cock crow twice, thou shalt deny me thrice. But he spake the more vehemently, if I should die with thee, I will not deny thee in any wise. Likewise also said they all. So here's the thing. Instead of accepting what Jesus said, what does Peter do? He says, I'm not going to desert you. Well, Jesus said, look, tonight, before the cock crows twice, you're going to deny me 3 times. But Peter still doesn't accept what Jesus says. He's like, I'm never going to deny you. And the other disciples say the same thing. Don't need to turn there, but it says in 1 Corinthians 10:12, it says, wherefore let him that thinketh he standeth take heed lest he fall. Here's the thing. Don't think, well, I'm safe. I'm safe from sin. I've got it all under control. No, the Bible says we should put boundaries in place. We need to be safe. Don't think that we're above sin. Don't be in a situation where we can be tempted. Don't put yourself in a compromising situation. I mean, we're at someone on Tuesday night, and we broke up into groups. And Phil was saying, if Doreen goes with you, that'll be good because she can, watch someone else giving the gospel. Hey, we did that. So, but guess what? Well, I took Nathan with us. Because I'm not going to go soul winning with me and someone else's wife. We're going to go soul winning together. I mean, I've had my door knocked on before by some Jehovah's Witnesses. And there was a man and a lady. Yeah. And, I didn't invite them in. I didn't bid them Godspeed, but I tried to give them some Bible while they're there. Yeah. And I thought they were a husband and wife. Yeah. They weren't. There was just a man and a woman out there doing their version of soul winning together. No, that's not what it should be. Okay? I mean, it's the same thing like with giving someone a lift. Giving someone a lift. If you're a guy, don't give a lady a lift in your car. If you're a lady, don't give a guy a lift in your car. Don't be in a car by yourself, And I've preached this many times before. And I've also seen people in Preach the Word Baptist Church ignore the warnings. Yeah. I've told people, beware, don't do this. Yeah. And I've then seen them do it. Yeah. And then, you know what? Later on, the person I've got in mind, it came out that they were involved in some pretty grievous sins. Yeah. And they ignored the warnings. Yeah. An older guy, going to take just a young girl, oh yeah, I'll drop you off home. It's dangerous. Yeah. It's something that we shouldn't be doing. Okay? Don't think that you're above sin. Put things in place to keep yourself safe. I think we'll leave it there tonight because we're about halfway through. Next time we're in Mark, we're going to continue from verse 32 because we're getting to a new topic now, Jesus praying in the Garden of Gethsemane. Now, one of the key messages we can get from this first part of the chapter, though, is the danger of not accepting correction. The danger of not accepting correction. What do we see at the start of the chapter? Judas didn't accept Jesus' correction. Jesus was saying, you're always going to have the poor with you. What Mary did, hey, doing that, that's a good thing. Did Judas accept that? Or did he he's off. He's off to the chief priests. He's off to the scribes. He's off to betray him. He chose the path of bitterness and betrayal. And what do we see with Peter? Peter wouldn't accept what Jesus said. And sure enough, what happens? He does deny Jesus. Now, they all said likewise, but Peter was the most vocal. He was the most vocal in both cases. It says, as we said, 1 Corinthians 10:12, wherefore let him that thinketh he standeth take heed lest he fall. The next verse after it talks about, it says, there hath no temptation taken you, but such as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that you're able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that you may be able to bear it. So notice he's saying, look, there's no temptation that's taken you apart from what is common. Everyone's got these temptations. But God is faithful. He's not going to suffer you or allow you to be tempted above that you're able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape. So with the temptation, guess what? God has provided a way of escape, that you can bear it, so you can handle it. Okay? Well, here's the thing. What is the way of escape? Look, are you looking for the way of escape? Or maybe are you just thinking, no, I'm looking for the way of sin. That's the way I'm wanting to go. Because there's a way of escape if you want it. Okay? But if you don't want it, what else do we see? We also saw the foolishness of, thinking Jesus is passing around alcohol at the Last Supper. I mean, the Bible says, wine is a mocker. And notice, it doesn't say too much wine. It says wine is a mocker. So if you're going to say, this is what Jesus was doing, this is a mocker that Jesus is passing around. Wine is a mocker, strong drink is raging, whoso is deceived thereby is not wise. And the last point is obviously, don't forget this one. you can't necessarily recognise the traitor. You can't. You can't. Especially with your children. You know? Keep them safe. Keep them safe. Wisdom is better than weapons of war. There's no fight, nothing you can do to go back and fix things once the damage has been done. That's why wisdom is better than weapons of war. And one sinner destroyeth much good. Be careful. You know, be careful. That's why, in the church, that's what we don't have Sunday school. We don't have Sunday school. We don't have, you know, and you say, oh, it's just because, you know, we're a bit on the small side. Doesn't matter how big we get. We're not going to have Sunday school. Why? Because it's a family integrated church. In a family integrated church, children are in the service. Guess what? How much abuse is going to go on? You know? Because you can see everything that's going on. There's no room for someone to disappear off to, and you don't know what's happening. Okay? And that's a wise idea. To keep it safe. To keep it safe. Okay? Jesus, with his 12 disciples, one of them was a traitor. You know? I mean, Jesus knew who he was. He'd chosen him. He said, have I not chosen you 12? And one of you is a devil. Guess what? In churches, devils come in. You know, they creep in unawares, and we need to be aware of it. It's not that we're going on a witch hunt to find out who they are. But look, just don't give them opportunities. Don't give them opportunities. And then you'll be safe, and your children will be safe. Let's pray. Gracious Lord, we thank you for this day. Thank you for your word. Lord, please help each one of us to be people that would learn from your instruction, that we wouldn't be fools who despise instruction, but we would hear and we would increase in learning. Lord, help us to learn from the example and not to be just ignoring what you're saying like Peter was or like Judas was. Help us to take your word on board. Help us to listen. Help us to learn. And Lord, we pray you would keep us safe. Lord, we know that people will creep in. We know people have come in before. Help us to be a church that always stands for the truth. A church that is safe. A church that shines your light brightly. Lord, we thank you for all those that have trusted in you in this last week. And Lord, we just pray that you'd help us to reach more people with the gospel. Thank you. We love you, Jesus. Amen.